The waiter brought the dessert tray to the table at 8:51 p.m., and that was the moment my daughter Beatrix excused herself to take a phone call she had clearly been waiting for since the bread course. "Mom, I'm so sorry. It's the school. I have to step out. 2 minutes." She was already standing. She was already moving. Her purse was already on her shoulder, which is how I knew the call was not the school. A woman who is taking a quick call from her child's principal does not put her purse on her shoulder. A woman who is leaving puts her purse on her shoulder. Her husband Tarquin smiled at me across the table. "Family emergencies, Helen. You know how it is." I did not, in fact, know how it was. I had raised 3 children to adulthood, and the only family emergency I had ever responded to with my purse on my shoulder was the one when Beatrix had broken her arm at a sleepover in 1998. And even then I had taken the purse off when I sat down in the emergency room. Tarquin took a sip of his wine. The wine was a Napa Cabernet that had cost $212 when I had glanced at the list earlier in the evening. I had not chosen it. Tarquin had chosen it. He had described the choice to the sommelier as something to mark the occasion, since Beatrix and I never really got to celebrate our first anniversary properly. It was their 7th anniversary. The first 6, apparently, had also not been celebrated properly. I had been invited to this dinner 3 weeks earlier when Beatrix had called me on a Sunday afternoon and said, "Mum, Tarquin and I want to take you out for our anniversary. We never really do anything just the 3 of us. I want this year to be different." I had said, "Of course, sweetheart." I had taken the bus to the restaurant. I had worn the cream blouse with the small pearl buttons. I had brought a card. The card was on the table now, beside Tarquin's elbow. It had not been opened. The dessert tray sat on a small wheeled cart beside our table. The waiter, a young man with a careful face and a lapel pin that read Dominic, was looking at me. He was not looking at Tarquin. He had been a waiter long enough to know which person at a table was the one to ask. "Ma'am, would you like to make a selection? Or shall I leave the cart for a moment?" "Leave the cart for a moment, Dominic. Thank you." He nodded. He stepped back. He went to refill water glasses at another table. Tarquin watched me. He had a small smile on his face that he had been wearing for most of the evening. It was the smile a man wears when he has rehearsed the choreography of a meal in advance and is enjoying watching it execute. "Helen," he said, "while Beatrix is on the phone, I wanted to mention something. We've been thinking, Beatrix and I, about the second mortgage. The one you co-signed in 2019. I set my coffee cup down very carefully. "Tarquin." "Yes." "Beatrix is on the phone right now." "Yes." "And you wanted to mention the second mortgage." "Yes." "To me, while she is on the phone." "Helen, I just thought since we're celebrating, since we're all family, I thought we could discuss it adult to adult, without Beatrix getting emotional. You know how she gets about money." I did not know how Beatrix got about money. Beatrix, to my knowledge, had never been emotional about money in her life. Beatrix had been emotional about exactly one thing in her life, which was the day her cat Posy had to be put down in 2014. And even then she had recovered by dinner. I looked across the dining room. Beatrix was not visible. I looked at the front entrance of the restaurant, which I could see through the archway between the dining room and the lobby. The hostess stand was visible. Beatrix was standing beside it. She had her phone to her ear. She was not speaking. She was watching the dining room. She was watching me. I returned my eyes to Tarquin. "Tarquin, what about the second mortgage?" "Helen, the loan is in good standing, of course. But our financial planner has been suggesting that we restructure some of our liabilities, and the second mortgage is a complication because of your involvement. We were hoping that you might be willing to assume the loan in your own name, just for tax purposes. It would simplify everything for all of us." I held his eyes. "Assume the loan?" "Yes." "In my own name?" "Yes." How much is the loan currently? 248,000. And the house? What is the house worth currently? About 880. So the equity is 632,000. Yes. And if I assume the loan stays at 248 and your equity increases by what, exactly? He smiled. The smile was thinner now. Helen, it's not about increasing equity. It's about cleaning up the paperwork. We could give you a small monthly stipend, of course, to compensate for the inconvenience. I let that sentence sit for a moment. Then I said, very quietly, Tarquin, is Beatrix going to come back to the table tonight, or is she going to take a phone call until the bill is paid? His face went still. Helen, I don't know what you mean. I think you do. He set his wine down. Helen, the call is, it's the school. I'm sure of it. Then she will be back in 2 minutes, the way she said. Shall we wait for her before we discuss the loan? Tarquin's mouth opened, his mouth closed. He looked toward the archway. Beatrix was no longer at the hostess stand. I had watched her walk out the front door of the restaurant 90 seconds earlier, while Tarquin had been describing the second mortgage. She had not turned to look back. She had walked out into the parking lot and gotten into the silver SUV they had driven in, and she was, I knew, without having to confirm, sitting in the driver's seat with her phone in her lap, waiting for her husband to negotiate her mother out of $248,000 while the bill arrived, waiting for me to sign nothing on paper, but to sign something with my agreement, my acquiescence, the small, soft, yes, I had been giving her for 43 years. Tarquin stood up. Helen, I'll go check on her. Yes, dear, do that. He left. He did not put his napkin on the table. He left it on his chair. The way men leave napkins on chairs when they intend to come back. Except in this case, the intention was a costume. I did not see Tarquin again that evening. Dominic returned at 9:04 with the leather check folder. He set it on the table beside the unopened anniversary card. He did not say a word. He had, by that point, done the math. I opened the folder. The total was $1,846. I sat with the bill for a moment. Then I looked up. Dominic. Yes, ma'am. 2 questions. Yes. First, would you happen to know if there is a small private room or alcove where I could make a phone call without being overheard? Yes, ma'am. The bar lounge in the back has a small reading nook. It's quiet at this hour. Second, could you bring me a fresh cup of coffee, black, and a single small cordial, whatever your bartender recommends? I will pay for the bill first, and then I would like to sit for a moment. He looked at me. Ma'am, I'm sorry. Dominic, you have nothing to apologize for. You did your job tonight beautifully. You watched a situation unfold, and you did not pretend it was not unfolding. That is a kind of professionalism that is rare in young people, and I want you to know, I noticed. He swallowed. Thank you, ma'am. I paid the bill. I tipped him $300. I walked to the back lounge with my coffee and my cordial, and I sat in the small reading nook in a leather chair beside a bookshelf, and I called my lawyer. Her name was Marguerite Dempsey. It was a Wednesday night, and she was at home, and she answered on the 3rd ring because she had given me her cell phone number in 2019. The same year I had co-signed the second mortgage, and she had told me at the time, Helen, if you ever need to undo this, you call this number, day or night. I had not called the number for 5 years. Tonight I called it. Helen. Marguerite, I'd like to undo it. A pause. The mortgage. The mortgage. Tell me what happened. I told her. The dinner, the wine, the phone call that was not a phone call, the second mortgage proposed across an empty chair, the silver SUV in the parking lot, the waiter who had apologized for nothing, the unopened card. When I was finished, Marguerite said, Helen, I am going to ask you a question. Do you remember the rider we attached to the co-signing agreement in 2019? I remember signing things. I don't remember a rider. The rider is on page 7, paragraph 2. It says, and I am quoting the language I drafted, the co-signer reserves the right, upon written notice and a 30-day cure period, to require the borrowers to refinance the loan into their sole names if the co-signer determines, in good faith, that the borrowers have engaged in conduct inconsistent with the co-signing relationship, including but not limited to attempts to modify the terms of the loan or transfer additional liability to the co-signer without her informed consent. I sat very still in the leather chair. Marguerite. Yes. You wrote that into the loan. I did. Why? Because Helen, in 2019, when we sat at my conference table and your son-in-law was in the next room making a phone call about tax structuring, I noticed something about the way he said your name when he thought I couldn't hear. I noticed it for about 30 seconds. 30 seconds is sometimes all it takes. I was quiet for a moment. Marguerite. Yes. What is the cure period? 30 days. They will have 30 days from the date of formal notice to refinance the second mortgage into their sole names. If they cannot, the loan accelerates. The full balance becomes due, and as the co-signer, you have the right to demand it be paid in full or to assume it yourself and seek civil reimbursement. And if they cannot refinance? Helen, they will not be able to refinance. I have been watching their financial situation since 2019 because you asked me to monitor it once a year. Their debt-to-income ratio has gotten worse every year. No bank will refinance a $248,000 second on an $880,000 property without a co-signer at this point. They will not be able to do it. Then what happens? Then you have options. You can accelerate the loan and let the bank foreclose. You can accelerate it and assume it yourself and let them buy you out over time. Or, and this is the option I would recommend, Helen, you can do something more elegant. You can let the loan accelerate. You can buy the loan from the bank yourself at a small discount, since banks prefer to discharge accelerated loans quickly. You become the lender, they become your debtors. They write you a check every month for the next 23 years, or they default to you and you foreclose. I closed my eyes. Marguerite. Yes. My daughter walked out of a restaurant tonight to let her husband ask me for $248,000. I know, Helen. How much would it cost me to buy the loan from the bank, in your estimate? At an accelerated discharge, with your relationship to the obligor, about $220,000. And the monthly payments at the current rate. About $1,840 a month. I opened my eyes. Marguerite. Yes. That is $6 more than the dinner I just paid for. There was a very small silence on the line. Helen. Yes. My husband is going to be sorry he is not alive to hear that sentence. Marshall would have liked it, wouldn't he? Helen. Marshall would have framed it. We worked for 40 minutes on the phone. By the time I hung up, the formal notice was being drafted. The bank had been pre-contacted by Marguerite's office partner who covered evenings, and the wheels of a long, calm, devastating piece of paperwork had started to turn. I drank my cordial. I drank my coffee. I tipped Dominic an additional $100 on my way out, because he had let me sit in the leather chair without checking on me once. I took a taxi home. I did not call Beatrix. I did not call Tarquin. Beatrix called me at 11:17 p.m. I let it go to voicemail. Mom, hi, listen, I am so sorry about tonight. The school thing was, Madison was sick at the sleepover, and we had to go pick her up. Tarquin came out to find me in the parking lot, and we had to go. Did you get the bill okay? Tarquin said, you said you'd handle it. Call me tomorrow, okay? Love you. I noted that the school thing had become Madison was sick. I noted that Tarquin said, "You said you'd handle it," was the active voice version of the passive lie my son-in-law had told the waiter. I noted that "love you" came at the end, after "call me tomorrow." The way "love you" always comes at the end of a voicemail, when a person has rehearsed an apology in advance and is trying to pad it with affection. I deleted the voicemail. I went to bed. I did not sleep that night. I sat in the kitchen and let myself remember. Not everything, just the moments I had been training myself not to look at directly for the last 7 years. The Sunday in 2018, when Beatrix had introduced Tarquin to me at brunch, and he had spent the entire meal asking what my late husband Marshall had done for a living, what he had owned, what he had left me, whether the house was paid off, whether I had a financial advisor, whether my advisor was flexible. I had laughed and said Marshall had been a high school history teacher, which was true, and that he had left me what high school history teachers leave their wives, which was a paid-off house and a small pension and a closet full of books on the Battle of Gettysburg. Tarquin had smiled. The smile had been thin then, too. I had not paid attention to the smile. The wedding in 2018. Tarquin's parents had given a toast that thanked the family, our family, the Hollingsworths, with a careful emphasis on the surname that did not include mine. Marshall had been gone for 2 years already. I had stood at the back of the room with a glass of champagne and felt the shape of the family fold itself closed around my daughter without me in it. The first Christmas. I had not been invited until December 23rd. Beatrix had said, "Mom, we just assumed you'd come to ours." I had said, "Of course." I had brought an entire cooked goose. The goose had not been served. "We already ordered the prime rib, Mom, but you'll love it. Save the goose for your own dinner." The summer of 2019, the meeting at Marguerite's office, where I had co-signed the second mortgage, Tarquin had stepped out to take a call. I had not heard what Marguerite had heard. I had only heard my own daughter, sitting beside me at the conference table, saying, "Mom, you'd be doing this for me, for us, for your grandchildren when we have them." The grandchildren were Madison and Tucker, eventually born in 2020 and 2022, and I had seen them 4 times each. The Mother's Day brunch in 2022, when Tarquin had asked me at the table, in front of his own mother, "Helen, have you given any thought to your end-of-life planning? You know, just in case." I had been 68 at the time. His mother had set down her coffee. I had laughed. I had laughed, because the alternative was to throw the coffee, and I had not been a thrower of coffee. The dinner 3 weeks ago when Beatrix had called and said, "Mom, we never really do anything, just the 3 of us. I want this year to be different. I want this year to be different." She had said it. She had meant it in a different way than I had heard it. She had been right, in her way. Tonight had been different from previous years. Tonight had been the first time I had paid the dinner bill and been asked to assume the mortgage in the same evening. Beatrix had been escalating her requests for 7 years, and I had been laughing for 7 years. There comes a moment when a woman runs out of laughter. I called Marguerite at 9 a.m. Thursday morning. She had already drafted the formal notice. "Helen, the notice will go out by certified mail today. Tarquin and Beatrix will receive it Monday." Marguerite, one change. "Yes. Send a copy to Tarquin's parents." A pause. "Helen. Yes. You want his parents to know." His mother set down her coffee at the brunch in 2022. Marguerite. She heard him. She did not stop him. She is a 66-year-old woman who has spent 7 years pretending her son is not what her son is. I am not interested in punishing her. I am interested in including her. Helen. Yes. That is the kindest cruelty I have ever heard described. Marguerite, do it. I will. The notice went out Thursday afternoon. Beatrix and Tarquin received it Monday morning at 10:42. I know because Beatrix called me at 10:46. I let it go to voicemail. She called again at 10, 51, 11, 14, 11, 38, 12, 9, 12, 47, and 1, 23. The voicemails escalated. The first one was confused, the second was angry, the third was tearful. The fourth was strategic. Beatrix had clearly gotten on the phone with her own attorney between the third and the fourth. The fifth was a return to confused. The sixth was, very quietly, the one she had probably meant from the start. Mom, I am so sorry. I knew what Tarquin was going to ask you. I knew, and I left. I left so I wouldn't have to see your face. I am so ashamed. I don't know what to do. Please call me back. The seventh voicemail, 50 minutes later, was Tarquin. Helen, I think we need to discuss this rationally. I am willing to admit that the timing on Wednesday was poor. But the legal action you have initiated is a very serious overreaction. I have spoken to my attorney and we believe there are grounds to challenge the rider in the original loan documents. We would prefer not to pursue that, but we will if necessary. I would suggest we meet to discuss how to resolve this without further complications. I noted that Tarquin had used the word we 11 times in a 60-second voicemail. I noted that he had not, at any point, said, I am sorry. I deleted the voicemail. Tarquin's mother called me at 4:14 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon. Her name was Cordelia. We had spoken perhaps 8 times in 7 years. Each time had been a polite, thin exchange about the weather or the children. I picked up. Cordelia. Helen, I received a copy of your attorney's letter. Yes. Helen, I want you to know that I had no idea any of this was happening. I had no idea about Wednesday night. I had no idea about the brunch in 2022. I had no idea about Helen. I had no idea Tarquin would ask you to assume the mortgage. I let her speak. Helen, I was the one who set down my coffee at Mother's Day. I remember that morning. I remember thinking my son is becoming a man I do not recognize. And then I let it go. I let it go because confrontation has never been my strength, and because I told myself it was probably a joke I had not understood. Helen, it was not a joke. No, Cordelia, it was not. What can I do? I thought about that for a long moment. Cordelia, there is nothing you can do for me. I would like to ask you to do something for yourself. The next time your son does something cruel in front of you, I would like you to set your coffee down, and then I would like you to say what you noticed, out loud. To him, in front of whoever is at the table, that is the only thing I would ask. Not for me, for the next woman. She was quiet for a long moment. Helen, yes, I will. Thank you, Cordelia. Helen, yes, I will be at the next family dinner, and I will be different. I closed my eyes. I believe you, Cordelia. We hung up. I sat at my kitchen window. The maple tree outside the window had gone the orange. It always went in late October. Marshall had loved that tree. Beatrix came to my house on Saturday morning, alone. She stood on my porch in jeans and a sweater. She had not put on makeup. Her eyes were red. I opened the door halfway. Not all the way, halfway. Mom. Beatrix. Can I come in? You can sit on the bench. I will sit in the chair across from you. We will talk for 30 minutes. Then you will leave. Those are the rules now. She sat. She cried for the first 3 minutes. I did not move. I did not soften. Then she said, Mom. I knew what Tarquin was going to do. I knew at 6 o'clock when we were sitting at the table waiting for you to arrive. He told me the night before, in bed. He said, Beatrix, at dessert, I am going to ask your mother about the second mortgage, so excuse yourself when the cart comes. And you said yes. I said, all right. There is a difference, Beatrix, between yes and all right, but not the difference you were hoping I would notice. She nodded. Mom, yes, I am leaving him. I did not respond immediately. This was not a sentence I had expected. Beatrix. Yes. When did you decide? When I read the letter from your attorney on Monday morning, I read the part about the rider, and I sat at our kitchen table for an hour without speaking. Tarquin was pacing in the next room, calling his attorney. And I realized, Mum, that I did not feel afraid for him. I felt afraid for me. I felt afraid that Mom is going to do this, and then she is going to do more, and Tarquin is going to lose. And I will be married to a man who lost to my mother. And then I realized, Mom, I realized I was already married to a man who lost to my mother. He just hadn't found out yet. I sat with that for a long moment. Beatrix. Yes. That is the smartest sentence you have spoken in 7 years. She laughed. A small, wet laugh. She wiped her eye. Mom, the mortgage, you're really going to take it. I'm really going to take it. The bank confirmed yesterday. I will own the loan within 30 days. The house remains in your and Tarquin's name. But I will be your lender. And the monthly payments. $1,840. $6 more than the dinner you walked out of. She closed her eyes. Mom. Yes. That is so on the nose I might cry again. Sweetheart. Sometimes the universe writes its own punchlines. Mom. If I leave Tarquin, the house will be his. In the divorce. He'll get the house, and he'll owe you the loan. Or I'll take the house and I'll owe you the loan. Yes. Mom. Yes. What if I take it? What if I take the house? What if I owe you the loan myself? For the next 23 years. What if I write you a check every month, on time, for 276 payments until I am 68 years old? What if I let that be the way I finally pay you back for the goose? I had not expected her to know about the goose. I had not mentioned the goose. Beatrix. Yes. You know about the goose. Mom, I have known about the goose for 10 years. I have just been pretending I didn't. I sat very still. I closed my eyes. I let myself, for the first time in 7 years, feel my daughter. Beatrix, you write me a check every month, on time, for 23 years. And every month when you write that check, I want you to think of one thing your father would have said about that month, and I want you to write it on the memo line. 23 years of memo lines, Beatrix, that is your inheritance. She started crying again. Yes, Mom. Sweetheart, the bench, stand up. She stood. I stood. I opened my arms for the first time in, I do not know how long. She walked into them. That night I sat at my kitchen window. The maple tree was orange. Marshall's reading chair was in the corner. The mug from Edinburgh was on the counter. I wrote one line in the small notebook I had started keeping, the morning after Callaway's, 3 years ago, when this had all started in a smaller restaurant on a quieter night. They left me paying for their anniversary dinner. So I left them paying for their house, and one of them, I think, will still be writing me a memo line when she is 68, and we will both, by then, know exactly what the goose was for. Then I closed the notebook, and I drank my tea, and I slept the way a woman sleeps when she has finally received an apology in the active voice from the daughter she had been waiting 43 years to hear it from.